Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of San Antonio. My name is Ann Peters. I am a former member of the First UU Board of Trustees, and my husband Troy is a current board member. We have two kids, Ronnie, who is a junior at Churchill High School, and Max, a 7th grader at Eisenhower Middle School. Our weekly worship is where we connect, share information, and inspiration. To begin, let's acknowledge the geographical place where we are currently located, the home of and traditional lands of the Tonkawa and Payaye peoples of the Conaway Band, original and indigenous stewards of this land. On that land is now located San Antonio, Texas, claimed as part of the United States of America. At our church, we believe and act in a universal love that binds us in mutual care and affection, especially in our work for justice for all and for our planet. Our faith is all-inclusive, and all means all. If you are new to us or visiting for the first time today, we welcome you to sign in on the chat stream. We'd like to get to know you and follow up with you. Wherever you are in your life's journey, we hope you will find your place with us.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Lardy, and I am co-chair of the Green Sanctuary team. I'd like to announce that on Sunday, December 13th, 2020, there will be a congregational meeting immediately following the YouTube service, or at 11:45 a.m., whichever comes first. It will be conducted virtually via Zoom in lieu of our Sunday morning coffee hour. The Zoom link has been provided in the congregational call that was sent out previously, and will also be in the chat stream toward the end of the service on December 13th. The congregational meeting is being called for three purposes: voting to approve that our congregation will endorse the Energy Innovation Carbon Dividend Act, EICDA. Voting will be via MailChimp ballot following the meeting. A copy of the resolution has been provided to all members, along with several forms of additional information, which I hope you will read or watch before the meeting. As a member of the Green Sanctuary team and as its co-chair, I am really excited that our congregation will consider support for this particularly important legislation. We believe it has a really good chance of succeeding due to its bipartisan support. Adoption of the act will make our communities and world a much cleaner place. Please review the materials provided. The board will also provide a state of the church presentation, updating everyone on key functions still going on, despite our not being on campus or holding live church in our sanctuary. Finally, the minister and the Committee on Ministry will be providing an update on ministerial goals and future efforts to develop a congregational covenant. Please join me and your fellow church members for the congregational meeting on December 13th following the service. See you there.
Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's going to trouble the water. See that hand all dressed in white. God's going to trouble the water. The leader looks like an Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's going to trouble the water. see that band all dressed in red. God's going to trouble water. It looks like the band that Moses led. God's going to trouble the water. Wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's going to trouble the water.
My name is Maia Meneses, and I've been attending First UU since 2004. We light our chalice on the second Sunday of the December holiday season. Out of the four elements, earth, water, fire, and air, today's candle symbolizes the second. Water is mutable. It is free-flowing or frozen, shallow or deep. Water represents life. Our First UU faith is often referred to as a river. And so today, we light our chalice to celebrate water.
We are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives in forgiveness and grace, whole and reconciled. We know this aim takes work, and so we are committed to live and behave as a community in covenant. Let's recite our covenant that articulates our guidelines and binds us together in community. The words can be found on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other. We gather together in spiritual community because we need constant reminders of what matters most in life. In a world of heartbreak and dehumanization, our congregations and communities call us to better selves. We learn to live with more wisdom, more connection, and more compassion. On this second Sunday of December, as reflected in our chalice lighting, we lit a candle in our virtual Advent wreath, celebrating the elements of water. Water is often experienced as a liquid. In a liquid, the atoms are close together, but can move around each other. This allows a liquid to take the shape of whatever container it is placed in, perhaps reflecting our own flexibility as you use. Many of us enjoy watching water, being near or in water, swimming, boating, fishing, scuba diving, snorkeling, and other watery hobbies. Our living faith is often referred to as a river of life. We will now share the special experience of welcoming new members into our living faith.
Today, it is our joy to celebrate new members of our congregation. They are Bill and Amelia Westney, Armani Villarreal, Jennifer Harkins and Erica Gutierrez, Andre and Mary Ellen Kujowski, Amanda White, JD and Haley Beam, and Carolyn Skrabacz. Before we ask each member to describe the meaning of this moment to them, let's listen to these words of welcome to our new members by the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. Every new member enters this faith with hope and possibility in their hearts, pledging to participate in and support the ministries of this church. They agree to remain true to the spirit of love that flows through this church and guides us. They seek our welcome as veteran members as they join us in this living faith.
In turn, all of us welcome you, as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision, both in times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when you need us to reach out to you. In return, we ask that you recognize our humanity. We will not always live up to our ideals. And when we fall short and break our bond, we invite you to stay in relationship by living in accord with our community agreements and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love. We welcome you as equal members of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
We now invite the new members to introduce themselves and tell us briefly what they are looking forward to in our church.
Hi, I'm Bill Westney, moved to San Antonio fairly recently. I've been a Unitarian for about 35 years or so, and I'm very excited to know there's such a dynamic church here, and I'm looking forward to meeting lots of really interesting, free-thinking people and having great conversations.
My name is Amelia Westney. I've been a member of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Lubbock, Texas for about 35 years. So when my husband Bill and I retired and settled recently here in San Antonio, it just made sense to seek out the UU community here. I have visited the church a few times, and I'm happy to see what a dynamic and vibrant place it is, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I look forward to taking part in its many programs and, of course, to meeting many of the members when the time is right for us to get together in person.
Hi everyone, my name is Armani Villarreal. I joined the church because I am new to the San Antonio area and I was in search of a community of like-minded, peaceful, loving people. What I look forward to the most is getting to learn more about you all and more about myself. I look forward to meeting you all virtually. Happy holidays.
Hi, we're half of the Kajowski family.
I'm Ryan, and this is Caroline.
And this is Anjay. We just joined the church in April, and I'm looking forward to more great services and meeting everyone in person and on Zoom. What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to story time when we're done with Zoom.
Yeah, what else? When you get back in person, what do you want to do? Is there a playground at church?
There's a playground at church.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking forward to. Nice to meet you. See you soon.
Hello, my name is Amanda White. I'm really excited to be joining this church and being part of a community that shares my values while also encouraging me to grow. I look forward to a lot of meaningful conversations and opportunities to join in fellowship with everybody.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Wright. I'm also known to many of you as Carolyn Skrabacz. My family includes my husband, Mark, known to many of you as Reverend Mark. I've been attending this church since January and even made a pledge. But what prompted me to join is that a couple of months ago there was a congregational vote on a matter that I cared about, and I realized I wasn't eligible to vote because I wasn't fully a member. So if some of you are in that position, I encourage you to consider joining as well. It's really quite simple. Go to the website, find the tab that says Visitors, click on Members, and fill out a membership interest form. Then you'll take a brief orientation course called UU 101 and make a pledge. It's that simple. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you all better in person and to join in the activities of this church. I really can't wait for our next in-person live coffee hour. In the meantime, I'll see you on Zoom.
how enthusiastic I am to hear each of your introductions. We appreciate you and bless you with the intention that we may all find ways of accepting, learning, growing, and evolving as a community of faith, hope, and love. Amen. As a way for us to connect as a community, you're invited to share a joyful event, a sorrow, or a concern by entering it on the chat stream. Please let us know what is in your heart. For ours is a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we come fully alive. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, a caring community where our sorrows are heard and held in compassion. Especially at this time of uncertainty, may we listen more deeply and grow more involved with and connected to each other. Let's join now in silent meditation as we write our joys and sorrows on the chat screen while Jaime plays our meditation music. I invite you to take a deep cleansing breath and exhale. For all our joys, sorrows, and concerns, may we deeply feel empathy and compassion. And for all that is unspoken, may the caring of our community offer a space of deep kindness, loving, and just action.
Our story this morning involves a Unitarian minister of the 19th century named Theodore Parker, and it involves a turtle. What the Turtle Taught Theodore by Gary Kowalski. Theodore Parker relates that as a child 4 or 5 years old, living on a farm in Roxbury, he was walking through the fields one day, absent-mindedly swinging a stick through the tall grass. This was many years ago, in the days before the Civil War. It was summertime. He stopped to watch the water bubble along a creek. Then he noticed a turtle sunning itself on a rock. He'd seen other boys use their sticks to strike at turtles and other animals. It was part of what children thought was fun, just as some children still like to bully and hit those who are weaker than themselves. Often children and grown-ups too are copycats, mimicking the behavior of others who seem bigger or stronger than themselves. Young Theodore wanted to be like the other older boys he'd seen, so he raised his stick into the air, taking aim and preparing to knock the turtle into the water. Then something stopped him. Something seemed wrong about the situation. He looked again at the turtle, quiet, peaceful, enjoying the summer day just as he liked to feel the warmth and light of the sun. Had the turtle ever done him any harm? Was the turtle so different from himself? Slowly he lowered his stick and walked home, thinking about what had happened. When he arrived home, his mother was there to greet him, and he told her about the incident. She listened carefully to Theodore, and listened especially carefully when he related how some strange force inside had stopped him from hitting the little animal. "Theodore," she said, "that force inside you is the voice of conscience. Always pay attention to it. Always follow what your conscience tells you. It's your moral compass that points you in the right direction. And if you honor your conscience, you'll never go wrong in this world." Theodore Parker grew up to become a Unitarian minister. He became a champion of the defenseless. He fought to end slavery in our country. He prayed to Father and Mother God and fought for women's equality and their right to vote. He felt a kinship with the whole family of creation, people of all sexes and races who had been made in the image of the holy. And it all started one summer day when he was just a child who saw a turtle and decided to do what was right.
It is now time for the offertory. The offering is a sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. You may make an offering on our online giving portal through the link on the screen while we enjoy music from Dana Clark.
Most of us have wondered how the universe began. Some claim a cosmic accident, some say a holy plan. The facts alone will never fill the hunger of our hearts. We long to comprehend this world of which we are a part, with parable and metaphor. The ancient tales are told as we listen. All the wisdom of the past unfolds. A myth is humankind's response to boundless mystery. Each story bears a seed of truth disguised as poetry. The people of the island say the world began with waves. People near the sun say it was light their God first gave. Many souls in every age who tried to understand found comfort in believing we were made by loving hands, with parable and metaphor. The ancient tales are told as we listen. All the wisdom of the past unfolds. A myth is humankind's response to boundless mystery. Each story bears a seed of truth disguised ask their questions. They deserve to hear the truth. So we must find a way to make the oldest stories new. And they need time to wonder, time to question on their own. For there are many answers they can only find alone. With parable and metaphor, the ancient tales are told. As we listen, all the wisdom of the past unfolds. A myth is humankind's response to boundless mystery. Each story bears a seed of truth disguised as poetry.
Our church has a larger purpose to support all of us in becoming more generous in giving of our time, talent, and treasure. As an autonomous and self-supporting congregation, we rely only on ourselves to realize our goals and purposes. May we succeed in fulfilling our goals, especially in our service to each other and to our wider community of humanity, and to non-humans too, all of which is made possible by today's offering. Today's message is a little history lesson. It's entitled Our UU Roots, from year 30 to 250 in the Common Era. We human beings are always yearning to know. We ask a lot of questions, like, who are we? Who am I? What is the meaning of life? Why am I here? The founding myths of religions provide answers for many and stimulate reflection for others. Questions about the nature of humans and the nature of God have long dominated our thinking. And most of us here at our church consider ourselves to be lifelong learners. We aren't satisfied with answers provided by others. We seek direct experiences for ourselves to deepen our life's understanding and expand our vision. Years ago, when I began to doubt the answers supplied by my childhood faith, Roman Catholicism, I was on a holiday vacation from college in Midland, Texas, where I grew up. That's where I first visited a UU church. At 18 years of age, I knew I had found a different kind of place. A community that cherished freedom and encouraged open dialogue on questions of faith, religion, politics, and social justice. This was 1968, and Vietnam was in the forefront, as well as civil rights. There was also quite a generation gap between me and my parents and their friends. It was refreshing and even shocking to me as I sat in a small discussion circle that older UU adults wanted to know what I thought, and also expressed views much different than my parents. I asked myself, what was it about these Unitarian Universalists that made their lives so much different than those of my parents? Our UU history features generations and generations of people who've asked a lot of questions. Many, at first, lose their religion. Then, by means of private and authentic struggle and personal risk, they find new ways of being religious. Our religious founders were thinkers, doubters, and seekers, all people for whom integrity and authenticity counted as something. Through processes of direct experiences and theological reinterpretation, reason, and reformation, they found ways to continue their search for truth and meaning in their religious lives. Today, especially in honor of our new members and our joining ceremony today, I'd like to explore with you some of our spiritual DNA, the experiences of some of our founders going back to the first 4 centuries of the Common Era. Now, as our hybrid name suggests, there are 2 basic historical and theological strands in the Unitarian Universalist tradition. Both can be discerned in the historical record, clearly espousing principles and revealing similar attitudes that mark UUs today. Much of the Hebrew Jewish Bible is an epic story of the roots of the Jewish people beginning more than 3,000 years ago. UUs also draw principles and values from these scriptures, especially those having to do with justice and community. Both Unitarians and Universalists were once Judeo-Christian movements. Our theological and ideological beginnings were especially articulated in the life of Jesus of Nazareth, as found in the Gospels and in the letters of Paul and other Christian Bible authors, and in the lives of the early church founders, such as Origen and Tertullian, who lived until around the year 250. It's important to understand that history of the search for truth is what guided us. Summing it up, Robin R. Myers writes in Saving Jesus from the Church that the epic roots of our religious forebears is, quote, a story of the journey from a narcissistic and tribal understanding of faith to a death-defying embrace of the universal worth and dignity of all life, unquote, including this entire earth and all its inhabitants. This is the point of our historical exploration today, and indeed may be the point of our lives. It's important to understand that what we believe today was not handed down on stone tablets or dictated by God to human secretaries. We all have come from human minds, and all that we have comes from human minds and experiences, sometimes expiring, sometimes fallible, contradictory as to the details. Let's look at some of these details now. For example, like today, there was no unity of the Christian faith or doctrine during the first 3.5 centuries after Jesus. That's right. Diversity was the rule. Jesus died around year 30, and soon thereafter his immediate followers in and around Jerusalem found themselves in conflict with Paul of Tarsus over church practices and the nature of Jesus. The earliest church council, held in Jerusalem around year 49, met to decide whether or not Gentile converts should be circumcised. There was a compromise. Jewish Christians were circumcised. Gentile Christians weren't. Orthodoxy and liberalism struggled from the beginning in Christian expressions. To understand the early differences and their evolution, it's important to establish the dates and sequences of writings that make up the Christian Bible, also called the New Testament, and the inevitable process of altering the spoken words of Jesus as some of his followers started to market him as the Son of God and Messiah. I'll give them to you in chronological order, starting with the earliest. The letters of Paul came first, in the mid-1st century. Then the first gospel was written by Mark in about year 70, just after the Romans claimed victory over the Jewish rebellion and destroyed Jerusalem and its temple. Matthew's gospel followed in 80, Luke's in 90, and then there were other letters that are not attributed to Paul, to the Colossians around 80, Ephesians around 90, 2 Thessalonians in 95. That was the time of the epistles of Peter, as well as James, 95. And the Revelation of John was published in about 95. Now, there were other Gospels that didn't make the canon, or in film terminology, the final cut. Peter's was written around year 60, Thomas's in 65. The letters or epistles and Gospel of John came last, in the early 2nd century. Now, it does appear from historical contextual studies, to which other literature is submitted, that some stories were watered down so as not to offend people, like the straightforward original beatitude, "Blessed are the poor," became "Blessed are the poor in spirit." And some stories were enhanced to appeal to a larger audience, like the virgin birth and the resurrection narratives. The realization that Paul wrote first opens some insights, since he makes no reference to such orthodox doctrines as the virgin birth or the resurrection of Jesus. There's no sense in Paul's writing that resurrection, a key teaching of Roman Catholic, Orthodox, and evangelical Christianity, was an actual physical one. Paul describes it as a spiritual resurrection, or a realization that God came alive in Jesus' life. Now, all of the Gospels seek to define the incarnation, the mystery of God's presence in a human. Jesus of Nazareth was a man of deep faith and exemplified a life-changing message in the way he lived and taught. In the Gospels, one can trace a growing interest in spreading a religion about Jesus as the Savior, rather than simply a historical message of Jesus, the Nazarene man. Marketing had begun. For example, Paul wrote that Jesus became God's Son by adoption after his spiritual resurrection. Mark moves the adoption earlier in his life to his baptism from John the Baptist with a voice announcing it from the heavens. Matthew and Luke deify Jesus as God's Son even earlier through the virgin birth. Finally, in the 2nd century, the Gospel of John pushes the beginning of Jesus to the genesis of time as the cosmic logos, with no human parent whatsoever. The Greek states, "en arche en ho logos." The Latin, "in principia erat verbum." In the beginning existed the Word. Logos literally means word. We use words to reason, to make points, to sway a listener. The word is the tool of argumentation to convey a message. The cosmic logos refers to the Word of God that manifested light on the first day, Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light." It was a spoken command. The Word created it. And on the second day, manifested by word, the firmament in the midst of the waters, Genesis 1:6, and God said, "Let there be the firmament in the midst of the waters." Jesus is therefore described in the Christian Bible, the New Testament, as the creative Word of God. The writer of Colossians in 1:16 says, "For by him all things were created in heaven and on earth." This is the role of the Logos. Now, John is the one who shows Jesus as the only way to salvation. The messenger becomes the message, accomplishing a divine rescue mission, death on the cross for humanity's sins. This atonement trumps the living example and wisdom teachings of Jesus. Consequently, it seems that most of Christianity today worships the messenger and ignores the message. This explains how millions of Christians can support aggressive wars and oppose universal health care. What would Jesus do? Unitarian Universalism does not worship the messenger. Why not? Most modern-day Christians, Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant, think that what they read in the letters and Gospels chronicles the whole struggle. They are largely unaware of the 300-plus years of diversity and struggle that followed the death of Jesus. The letters and the Gospels are only a small percentage of what was written and circulating during the decades after Jesus' death. Let's take a little deeper look at this. 40 years after Jesus, the Roman army marched into Jerusalem and quelled the Jewish rebellion. And to make sure it didn't happen again, they sacked the city and the temple. Thousands fled and did not return to the land of Palestine until 1948. The influence of many who considered Jesus to be simply a human being, although a courageous teacher rather than a deified Christ, made its way out to Egypt, Rome, and beyond. In this emphasis on the human nature of Jesus and his ethical teachings, the seeds of Unitarian Universalism were sown. Tertullian, one of the influential church fathers of the 2nd century, wrote, quote, "The common people think of Jesus as a man," unquote. This in contrast to the bishops who ruled the churches and just may have had an agenda for promoting their views as Jesus, Messiah. The 2nd century theologian Origen, called by many the first universalist, rejected the concept of hell and believed in the benevolence of God, who offers salvation to all humankind. 600 years later, Origen was declared a heretic by the Roman Church. Go figure. Thank you for listening to these stories of our early UU history. People ask me when Unitarian Universalism got started. I said, "You ever heard of the life of Jesus?" It really stems from that life and his teachings. I plan to continue our history lesson, picking up where we left off today and continuing through to a more recent time. We'll visit the next chapter soon in January and find out just how we became known as Unitarians. Our religious forebears were doubters, thinkers, and seekers, all people for whom integrity and authenticity counted as something. Through the processes of direct experiences and theological reinterpretation, they found ways to continue their responsible search for truth and meaning in their religious lives. A. Powell Davies, minister of All Souls in Washington, D.C., former minister, I must say, and a minister to so many of people in our nation's capital, said that, quote, religion is not something separate and apart from ordinary life. It is life, life of every kind, viewed from the standpoint of meaning and purpose. Life lived in the fuller awareness of its human quality and spiritual significance. Unquote. May we have the courage to continue living the example of this spirituality and becoming a community that does not make excessive claims for its own message, even for those of us who follow Jesus, who was our way shower. May we be a community that does not traffic in a security it does not know, a community open to the truth, whatever the source, and a community that is empowered by the rich diversity of human and non-human life. Let us now enjoy the postlude by Jaime and the gathering afterward of our special congregational meeting. I look forward to seeing you there, even if it is on Zoom.